Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining me again. Today I have another word, and this one is also encouraging. And today the Lord actually said that He said that He's 10 steps ahead of our enemies. So the title of this word is The Lord is 10 steps ahead of your enemies. The Lord is 10 steps ahead of your enemies. So though, our enemy, we have one common enemy, which is Satan. He always thinks that he's got us, like he always thinks that, oh, he's gonna go ahead and like come against children of God. The Lord is always ahead. So the Lord actually took me to many different scriptures, where he showed me that how, in every situation, he always loses, like the enemy always loses. So starting with, he took me to Esther today, the Book of Esther. And of course, you guys already know the story, how King Xerxes became upset with his wife, Queen Vashti, and he sent her back to her parents, back to her country, and was looking for a different queen. And then of course Esther was chosen, and she became the queen and she hides her identity. And then down, like in chapter that's chapter 2, chapter 1, chapter 2. This whole thing is happening with Queen Esther and King Xerxes. And chapter 3 is when Haman comes into the picture, where the enemy is like playing his card, where Haman is used as, of course we know who was behind it now, but back then it was like, of course, Haman was looked at as the enemy. So Haman becomes, angry and jealous, because filled with rage, because Mordecai doesn't bow to him and doesn't really give him a lot of respect. So in chapter 3, it says, when Haman saw that Mordecai would not bow down or show him respect, he was filled with rage. He had learned of Mordecai's nationality, so he decided it was not enough to lay hands on Mordecai alone. Instead, he looked for a way to destroy all Jews throughout the entire empire of Xerxes. So, the enemy, of course, played that, but he didn't really remember that, there's a queen in the palace that's a Jew. But of course, Queen Esther had fear, of course, fear of man, because in chapter 4 we see that Esther was after what's his name, Haman, did a decree. I think it's verses 6. It says, no, it's not verses 6. Yeah, he actually planned to kill all the Jews, and I think it's, what day is it now? Let me double check. But and in chapter 4 is when Mordecai sends for Esther and asks for help, asking she should go and plead to the king. And Esther is afraid because she's wondering, if she goes to the king, she might get killed. And then of course Mordecai tells her that if she doesn't do it, she's made queen for such a time as this. Maybe she's made a queen for such a time as this. But anyhow, in chapter 4, then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai: go and gather together all Jews of Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days. Night 3 do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. My maids and I will do the same. And then, and though it's against the law, I will go in to see the king, and if I must die, I must die. So Mordecai went away and did everything as Esther had ordered him. So Esther, here she overcomes her fear, like the fear of man, which she was, was stopping her from going and seeing the king. So it was another win for the Lord here. Then, of course, we know what happened. She did a banquet, and then at the end, revealed to the king that the whole story. But in chapter 6, I actually found it really funny that, Haman had to honor Mordecai. It just, it kind of seemed like, it's just the Lord. I actually was laughing how this happened, how Mordecai was like expecting to be honored, and with a horse, and someone taking him around town, and saying all those, exclaiming that this is what the king does to those that he honors. But then the king says, "Excellent." Let me read that verse. On chapter 6, verse 10, it says, "Excellent." The king said to Haman, "Quick, take the robe and my horse, and do just as you have said for Mordecai, the Jew who sits at the gate of the palace. Leave nothing you suggested. Leave out nothing you have suggested." So Haman took the robe and put them on Mordecai, placed him on the king's own horse, led him through the city square, shouting, "This is what the king does for someone he wishes to honor." After Mordecai returned to the palace, but Haman hurried home, dejected and completely humiliated. So this is really, I was really laughing when I was reading this. It was, to me, this seemed like one of those things that the Lord would do to your enemies. Whatever they plan humiliation for you, it's gonna come back on them. Then he created he set up a 75-foot sharpened pole to hang Mordecai. And in chapter 7, verses 9, we see that he ends up being hung on it. So in chapter 7, verses 9, it says, "Then Harbona, one of King Enoch, said, Haman has set up a sharpened pole that stands 75 feet tall in his own courtyard. He intended to use it to impel Mordecai, the man who saved the king from assassination. Then impel Haman on it," the king ordered. So they impelled Haman on the pole he had set up for Mordecai, and the king's anger was subsided. So he ended up, dying. He ended up having the same fate that he had intended for Mordecai. The Lord brought multiple situations, that where the enemy had a plan, but the plan fell, and it actually worked out for the best of those that that he was trying to hurt. He brought up Genesis. He brought up Pharaoh, and the Pharaoh, and actually he brought up Genesis 37 to 50, Joseph, how Joseph's brothers, thought, "Oh, we got rid of Joseph." Then later they ended up, needing him to stay alive pretty much. And then they bowed out to him, and they were terrified of him, because in in chapter 50, they were begging him that after their dad died, so Joseph wouldn't kill them. Of course, don't quote me on these on this. I'm just paraphrasing. You already know the story, but I will go ahead and put all this information in the description, so you can read the chapter and find those verses. And then the Lord brought up, because this is gonna be very long if I read 2 chapters for you guys. Then the Lord brought up, of course, Pharaoh and the Israelites, how Pharaoh was being, had hardened his heart and wasn't letting Israelites go. Then later on, in Exodus 12, verses 31 through 33, it says, "Then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron at night, and he said, get up and go away from my people, both you and the people of Israel. Go and worship the Lord as you said, and take your flocks and your cattle as you have said, and go and pray that God will come to me also. And then the Egyptians were trying to make the people hurry out of the land, for they said, "We will all be dead." And at the end, at first they were not letting them go. Then the Lord did the 10 plagues, and then they're like, "Well, get out, because we're all gonna die," And they ended up giving them gifts and everything too. And then the Lord brought up um, let's see, he brought up the resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ. The enemy thought, oh, like I killed Jesus, it's the end of it, God's plan is done. But he didn't know that at the end the Lord is going to use that, like, the enemy is now placed under our feet. He had so much pride that he was competing with God. Now he's under our feet. We are like people made of clay. So imagine like how much his pride is crushed. So he's a defeated foe. So yeah, the Lord kept bringing these different examples, and then he also kind of pointed out how he has put fear in the hearts of your enemies. Like let's see, in like before they took Haman to be hung, he was so scared that he jumped on the queen, like he was pale with fear. And then of course we see that let's see, in Genesis 34, I was reading that as well because the Lord brought that up. It's about Jacob's sons who actually killed the people in Shechem, and after they had they had molested their sister, Diana. Let me double check. I think it's Dinah. So anyhow, but in verses in 37, chapter 35, verses 1 through 5, it says, then God said to Jacob was pretty upset after what they had done, because they went and killed all the men in the Shechem, and not only that, but also plundered their properties and everything, and then they took their children and their wives. And Jacob was very upset and scared, because he was like, now they're gonna all come, there are so many of them and there's like few of us. But the Lord asked him to move out. So he, in chapter 35, it says, then God said to Jacob, get ready and move out to Bethel and settle there. Build an altar there to the God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau. So Jacob told everyone in his household, get rid of all pagan idols, purify yourselves, and put on clean clothes. We are now going to Bethel, where I will build an altar to God who answered my prayer, and when I was in distress. He has been with me wherever I have gone. So when they gave Jacob all their pagan idols and earrings and earrings, and buried them under the great tree in Shechem, they set out. A terror from God spread over the people in all towns of that area. So no one attacked Jacob's family. So we can see, like, throughout this whole all these chapters, there's one thing common, that the enemy was constantly afraid. Like, even now the enemy is afraid. Demons are afraid of you, afraid of us. And so the Lord was saying that he has a plan. Then he took me to Jeremiah 29:11, and it said that he has a good plan. So to trust them, even though like the enemy sometimes comes against us hard. Like today I had like warfare, and the Lord was saying that to trust him, trust his plan, even though it may look like you're probably like things are against you. But the reality is that, you know, your enemies are scared of you, and not only that, that at the end the Lord always wins. So as long as you follow His plans and you know, are obedient to Him, you know, the Lord never fails. He always wins. So that's the word, and I pray that this brought some encouragement to you. You know, it was quite long, so I pray that this was a confirmation, and it brought some encouragement and some peace. And if this word blessed you, please like, subscribe, share, all those great things. And if the Lord leads you, then sow a seed. Okay, may the Lord bless you and keep you. Amen.